Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to another type of tutorial where we're going to be chefing up some eggs today, or however you want to say it, however you say cooking your eggs. So we're going to be doing that in this video. I hope you either brush up on your fundamentals or, learn something new throughout this video as well. That would be cool. So not much to say, let's just get into it. Before we start though, I should say this is going to be more of a chill type of tutorial. You should check out my complete beginner's tutorial if you're new and don't understand anything in this video, especially the shaders explanation part of my complete beginner's tutorial, so you can check that out if you need to. Okay guys, so let's get into this right away. First thing I'm going to do is actually just delete everything by selecting everything and doing X. I'm then going to add in a UV sphere, just like this. I'm going to go into X-ray mode and just cut off the entire bottom half of it. After that, I'm going to alt-click the vertices in the center of the sphere and just do ES to kind of extrude outwards, just like that. And I'm then going to go into proportional editing mode and basically just mess up the edges a lot of the egg white area, just like that. After that's done, I'm going to add a solidify modifier and just increase the thickness a little bit, just like that. This is a little bit subjective, honestly, right now, so you don't have to be like too concerned, but yeah. I'm also going to add a subdivision modifier with Control 1 just to smooth things out a bit more and get it nice and subdivided. So yeah, this is our nice base, and of course it doesn't have to look like this. There's a million ways to make an egg, and there's like, infinite possibilities, so this is just how I'm doing it here, but you can make it look however you want. Okay, anyways, so this circle thing I added now is going to be the pan, so you can add a circle, and I'm just going to go into edit mode and just do EZ to extrude up on all the vertices, maybe scale out a bit, fill the center at the bottom. You can also add in some loop cuts and maybe use Alt-S to puff it out a bit. But once again guys, there's like a million different ways you can make a pan. This is just how I'm doing it here. I'm going to then add a sun, just like that in rendered view. And I'm going to go to the shader editor now and just delete everything and add in a diffuse BSDF, a shader to RGB, and then a color ramp node, just like this. And once again guys, if you don't understand why this works, or how it works, just go and watch my complete beginner's tutorial, especially the shaders part of it, which is going to explain to you how it works. But anyways, at this point, we just want to set a yolk color, so I'm going to use orange, and obviously this is affecting like the entire model, so what I'm going to do is add a new material slot, and hit assign with the egg white area selected, and then after that, I'm just going to basically copy the shader, paste it, and just connect that up. Once again, obviously I'm going to have to change the color to white on this second shader instead, so I'm going to do that momentarily. You can see here trying to set it to white now. I actually copied and pasted in some of the original colors that I used when I first made this, because this is like a rerun of I'm like making it for a second time here, but yeah. So that is how that works. Now I want to add an outline to the egg. I am going to just use the stylized acid suite add-on, which you can get for free on my channel. In order to do this, you can just hit like the add material slot button, hit new, and then just go to where it says add object outline and hit add it. It's just like a much faster way than doing it the manual way. So I like to do it this way personally. And after that, you can just remove that new material you added. And from this point on, you can just start making some slight adjustments. Like you can see here, the yolk part wasn't like going down enough, so I just had to do that. Okay guys, so we now need to unwrap the egg so that we can actually texture paint on it. So I'm going to just kind of like mark a seam going in the center of the egg, going around it, and basically just like going horizontal, just cutting the whole thing in half sort of. And then I'm going to unwrap. Once again guys, if you don't understand how unwrapping works, check out my complete beginner's tutorial because I explained that there as well. And so yeah, now that we have it unwrapped, we can actually start doing some texture painting. First, I want to texture paint on the speculars for the yolk. So I'm going to just add a mix node and an image texture, as you're going to see very soon. And that image texture is going to get plugged into the FAQ of the mix node, but getting a bit ahead of myself here. First, we have to actually create the image texture, so just hit new, and you can name it whatever you want, obviously. Give it whatever resolution you want as well. And for B, we just want to use white, obviously, because this is for the specular. And just like that, we will now be able to texture paint that on our model. And of course, there's other ways to add speculars as well, I know guys, but just like for the sake of what I was making here, I wanted to just texture paint on it manually. So yeah, that is why I'm doing that here. Of course, make sure you're drawing with white and black. And once again, the reason for that is something I explained in my beginner's tutorial. Okay, anyways, so let us continue now. What I now want to do is go to our shader for the egg whites, and we're going to do a very similar thing. I want to be able to just paint darks on our model here, so I'm going to add a mix node once again, an image texture, we're going to do the same song and dance, so to speak, that we just did with the yolk and adding the specular, except now in the V value, we are going to use like a bit of a darker color and set the blend mode to multiply, so that when we draw with this image texture, we can now draw in some darkness. So that is what I'm going to want to do here. And I'm going to go to texture paint mode once again. And yeah, so pretty much you can just start painting in these streaks. I kind of like to have them look like this, as you can see on your screen. They kind of spiral out from the center of the egg, where the bottom is more curved and the top is like more, I think the word is like concave and convex. So the bottom is like convex and the top is concave. Sorry if I'm not like saying it completely correctly, but I think it would be like something like that. And so yeah, this is like a more chill part. Now finally, we've set up like the egg, and now we can just sit here and chill and kind of like block this out a bit. Okay, anyways, so now I'm going to add another mix node because I want to be able to draw blacks on the egg whites as well, and also on the yolk, but we'll do that later. So I'm just going to add an image texture again in the B, set it to black, and you know, I created the image texture and I called it like egg blacks, something like that. And I'm actually going to copy these nodes and just put it into the yolk shader as well, so that we can texture paint black on both the yolks and the egg whites. So that is really important, just make sure you do that. And now I'm going to do a little bit of texture painting here. You can see I wanted to kind of like outline the bottom of the yolk, so I'm just like drawing black in that area a bit. Keep in mind, guys, the material you have selected, whether you have the yolk or the white selected, I think it does matter. So just make sure if you want to texture paint on the yolk, that you have the yolk material selected in the material slots instead of the egg whites and vice versa. So yeah, just make sure you are doing that. And you can see now I'm just going to chill a little bit and draw in some blacks. You can also draw in dots if you want to have like black pepper on your model, but that is optional. I wanted to have it on mine, so I did here. And yeah, not really anything too crazy happening now. Just kind of like dotting it in a bit. So yeah. Okay guys, so at this point, we now have one egg done, so we can now just basically hit Shift D and duplicate them around so that we now have 4. And from this point on, what I want to do is actually just distort each individual egg a lot so that they're not all the same thing. Having all eggs as the same thing can be visually appealing, but I wanted to make it more like varied and irregular, so that's why I went into edit mode here. And you can see on the egg white area specifically, I'm just really distorting it for, you know, all of the objects here. So nothing too crazy, this is really easy to do. You're just like doing G and, you know, just like moving around the vertices, that's all you're doing pretty much. So yeah, you'll see me do that for some time here. You can watch this really fun event take place. Okay guys, so the next little task we're going to do is just go into the shader editor for our pan and delete the materials there. And we're just going to add a diffuse PSTF, shader to RGB, color ramp, same tune shader setup, and I'm sure at this point you guys can get like what I'm trying to do here. Just add in base color basically for our pan. And I actually also kind of like beveled one of the edges of it and used Alt S to puff it, I guess out you could say a little bit in there, just to kind of give it a more unique shape. Okay, so here what I did now is I added some loop cuts in between in the egg whites, kind of like going just like around the whole thing. And the reason I did that was because in eggs, when they're cooking, not always, but sometimes they kind of have like this layering where the center part of it is like a bit higher than the edge of it, which is why I did this. Basically just selected one of those loops in the center and did Alt S to puff it out. So, you know, that's why I did what I did there. By the way, if your shadows are looking really weird when you do this, I actually adjusted on the color ramp at the bottom of the screen here just to make the space for the shadow a bit bigger, so you guys can do that as well. If your shadows are looking really weird, you can just play around with the flags on the color ramp to try and see if that fixes it. And now, of course, this is something I'm going to do for all of the other eggs as well, but I don't think that really needs to be shown here because I just showed you how to do it on this one. It's basically the same exact process. And now I'm just doing some more like random adjustments that I wanted to make. Obviously, at this point you can make whatever adjustments you want and try to give the overall scene a nice look. I also went back into texture paint mode and made more changes, as you can see here. So yeah. Okay guys, before we go any further, I just want to talk a little bit about my masterclass. If you're someone who's been trying to learn Blender but doesn't have a clear path, this is a program that will teach you my entire workflow for making things like anime style characters, beautiful scenes, and just amazing stylized art in general. It's one of the only comprehensive curriculums on this that exists, and is suitable both for beginners as well as people who are more experienced and want to level up their stylized art skills, or just become a better 3D artist in general. We focus both on technical skills as well as observational skills, meaning technical skills as in how to use Blender efficiently, as well as the observational skills of design and stuff like that, because without that your art is going to look flat no matter how well you can use Blender. So if you're interested in joining me and hundreds of other students, you can check it out on ukiogirls.io. Okay, back to the video. Okay guys, so now at this point what I want to do is create the face for our egg yolk. This is super easy to do. Literally all I did was I added a circle, I filled it, I also disabled shadows on it so that it won't cast any shadows onto the egg yolk. But basically after that all you have to do is just give it a base color of like black or something like that. I'm going to go into edit mode and basically just work in edit mode to duplicate the circle and create the other eye as well as the mouth and then the eyebrows as well. So, you know, just like this, using duplication, you can make all of the features very easily from a simple circle. And of course I already made the faces for the rest of these eggs here, so I just pasted them in, and just like that you can see we now have them. One other little detail I did here was on the pan, I selected an edge and hit E to extrude out so that it now has like a kind of handle and it's not like completely floating. So I recommend doing that as well. Okay, so now for the fire, we're not going to make it completely from scratch here, you guys can download it. Okay, so let me just give you guys a quick little explanation. So when you have the fire, there's kind of like multiple layers, so basically it's just like the same object, but like duplicated with the color changed. So we have this as the main one, but then we also have these like other ones here. You can see this bright one on the bottom and this kind of like yellow one in the center. The reason I did that was of course because fire naturally kind of at the base is brighter, and then at the top it becomes more orange or red. So that's why I did that. If we go to the shader here, I can explain to you a little bit about how it kind of works. Let me just select the main one here, which is this one. So you can see here, there's a lot of kind of stuff happening. All you really need to know though is to change the color, you can go here and just set it to whatever you want, just like this. Another thing you should know is for animating the speed, you can see anywhere where it's purple, if you just click on it, you'll see a frame divided by a number. So if you want it to be slower, you would change 200 to be like 500, and you know, the more you divide it, the more slower it's going to be. If you want it to be faster, you would do like maybe, I don't know, 50. Once again, you can go in the file and kind of like dissect it. Basically, I kind of have like this other one too on the sides here where the transparency is just really low. So these are basically like all the same things, just like slightly adjusted. And the reason why I wanted it to be able to do that is so that, you know, if you transparent one of them, you can kind of like see the other layers of fire underneath it. It's a bit weird, but you know, that's just like how this works kind of. Anyways, it would take more time for me to explain the whole thing of how it works. But for now, you guys can just download this and use it in your scenes. Alright guys, so anyways, now let's get back to what we were doing before. So you can see here, and now I have the fire playing. Really easy step, you just kind of like add it in, then you can scale it up, and just like that, you can have it in your scene. One thing also I forgot to do earlier that you guys should do is take your faces and then vertex parent them by selecting 3 vertices on the egg yolk and hitting Ctrl P, which is going to vertex parent them to the mesh. Okay guys, so at this point what we want to do is start making the shape keys for the eggs to make them be able to puff out as if they're actually being cooked. So if you hit the plus button twice in the shape keys tab, you'll have something called key 1. This is very easy to understand, by the way. A shape key is basically just when you set the key to 1, you can basically make a new kind of shape for the model in edit mode, and then when you slide it back to 0, it goes back to how it was before. Very simple and easy to understand. And so basically for the first shape key that we add, I want it to be just kind of like going back and forth, so that's why I'm kind of having it so that the egg goes towards the center a little bit, and that's pretty much it. Now what I want to do is add another shape key, and this second shape key is going to be for specifically kind of like the puffing out of the egg when it gets cooked, and kind of has like those random spasms. So that's what I'm adding here. And of course guys, once again, I do this for each one of the eggs, not just for one of them. Of course here, just to save time, I'm only showing you it on kind of like one of the eggs, but basically I do this for all of them. Now we need to add one last shape key, and this one is going to be me alt-clicking the edge of the egg and just hitting S really slightly. So really just kind of like slightly puffs out the entire edge of the model. And that's going to kind of give it like a nice vibration as if it's actually being cooked. And of course, once again, do that for every egg. And once you have these shape keys done, it's going to be really easy to just start animating everything together. So to animate these, it's pretty easy. You just hit I on where the influence is for the shape key, and then from there, you can literally just oscillate it between 1 and 0 for the entire duration of your scene. Of course, once again, make sure you do this for all of the eggs. Now we want to do the same exact thing, but for the second shape key. It can be a little bit hard to see on the timeline now with both shape keys, so you can hit Control Tab to go to the graph editor, and basically if you open the menu, you can kind of just hide the first shape key so that you're only looking at the second one. And then from there, you can do the same exact thing that you were doing on the timeline before, except now in the graph editor, which is way nicer because you can actually see kind of like the exact value of everything. So you'll see what I'm doing is I'm just like hitting Shift D to just duplicate the keyframes all the way. And just like that, we have done the same thing we did for the first shape key. Now for the third one, since it's so simple, it's literally just kind of like the edges of the egg puffing very slightly, or pulsating I guess you could say. I'm just going to add a noise modifier for the shape key and increase the strength a bit, which is going to basically make it oscillate up and down for the influence on that shape key. And you can see now this is looking way nicer. Okay guys, so now we're going to do a little bit of compositing, which is going to be really nice. Just make sure you set compositing to always in the top right in the render tab, and just go to the compositing tab, hit use nodes. And this is going to be a very simple and easy composite. I'm just going to add in a glare node. And from there you can literally just play around with the parameters. It's very easy and self-explanatory to use. To be honest, I don't really need to even know exactly what everything means. I just kind of like play around with all of the controls until I get something that I like. So yeah, that's what I just did here. And then after that, I'm going to add in a soften node and then a diamond sharpen node. And from there, this kind of gives a nice sharpening effect to the overall look of the scene. Okay guys, so now I want to start adding the bubbles that are going to go on the eggs. So I'm going to add an icosphere, shade it smooth, and then for the shader, it's going to be pretty simple overall. We are going to delete the principled BSDF. We're going to add in a mix shader, a Fresnel node, and then a transparent BSDF, as well as an RGB node. So basically this Fresnel mask kind of just like selects the edges of the sphere, and then we plug that into the FAC. So basically the center is going to be transparent, and then the RGB, or whatever color we set, is going to be kind of like the edges of it. And just like that, we have a nice bubble. I'm going to create a new collection called Bubbles, and I did that using the M key, by the way. You can do M and then new collection. And I'm just going to duplicate this bubble, because now I want to make another variant, which is going to be just like an all-white version. And literally that's just an RGB node, so super easy. And yeah, now after that, the last step is going to be to duplicate the regular bubble a few times. The reason we're doing this is because we want most of the bubbles to be regular, and you know, like the full white one should only be like a rarity. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is just go into edit mode on our egg. I'm going to alt-click the edge, going around the egg, hit Shift-D, P by selection, and then after that, by the way, make sure you're on your basis and you're not on any of your shape keys, otherwise it'll look weird. I'm just going to select everything and hit ES to extrude outwards. So now we kind of have like this outer edge for our egg. Now what I'm going to do is go to the Geometry Nodes tab, and I'm going to add in a Distribute Points on Faces node, which basically just like adds points onto the mesh. It's really simple. Just adds a bunch of points just like that. Now we can add an Instance on Points node, which will allow us to actually have objects on those points. And what I'm going to do is just drag in our bubbles collection, just like that, and drag that into the instance for the Instance on Points node. Also, there's a few other settings you have to check, like make sure you check the two options on the red collection node, and also you'll notice it looks like really weird right now, and only one type of bubble is showing. That is because we have to check the Pick Instances option over here, so make sure you check that as well. Now to vary the size of the scale for everything, I'm just going to add in a noise texture, which is basically just like noise that's going to kind of like give random values for the scale of everything, and you can use a color ramp to kind of clamp it a bit like I'm doing here. It's very visual, guys. You can just kind of like play around with it here, and there's just like so many applications. Now one last thing, you might remember we have shape keys on this object because we duplicated it from the egg white, but we don't really need it for the bursting ones, so you can either uncheck them or you can just remove them entirely. I keep the first shape key because that's the one that's just like moving, but the other ones for like the bursting or the pulsating, it's not really necessary. And okay guys, so that is it for that. I'm just going to do it for the rest of the eggs now as well. Literally the same exact thing over and over. And once you're eventually done, you can go into edit mode and kind of like adjust it individually if there's any places where it's clipping too much or anything like that. Alright guys, so one more step is we're going to select these bubbles we just made, hit Shift D, delete the geometry nodes modifier, and this is going to be kind of like the runoff from the white of the egg, if that makes sense. So basically for the shader, I'm just going to set it to the egg white shader, but then I'm going to separate this as a new shader by clicking the number button, and then add in a mix shader and a transparent BSDF, and now what we can do is kind of make it a bit transparent. Also make sure to set the render method to blended instead of dithered, and if you don't see this menu, you can hit the N key on your keyboard. Okay, so I know this last part was quite a mouthful, so feel free to watch it back and slow it down if you need to. And so yeah, you just have to do the same exact thing for the other eggs, and from there you'll be pretty much done. One last little detail I'm adding here is using a glossy BSDF. I'm just adding in some reflection to the pan, so that is another thing you can do, although it's not like a super necessary step. Okay guys, so that is the end. Now obviously there's like a few extra things I did as well. Mainly, for example, you can see I kind of added like these kind of leaves onto the eggs here. And these were just really basic things. And you know, adding something like that is very, very simple. Besides that, on the eggs, I also added in some crisp edges. So you can see if we go to the shader editor here, you can see I kind of added like these crisp edges. Were they a good addition? Honestly, I don't know exactly, but either way, they were something that I just like wanted to test out because I thought they looked cool. So yeah, that is definitely something you can test out as well. And then besides that, on the pan, I kind of shifted the color to be a bit more orange overall. And what I did was I kind of added in like a bit of noise in a way that kind of just added a little bit more distortion to it, which made it look a little bit nicer. Alright guys, so that is the end of the video. If you're interested in seeing how I got to this point, check out my art journey video, because I want to be more than just the guy who's like teaching Blender online or like teaching art online and stuff like that. So check out that video if you guys are interested, and have an awesome day.